If you can't stop emotional eating, but you're desperate to lose weight and you don't know what to do, you feel like you've tried absolutely everything, then this video is for you. Hi, my name's Clara. I'm a chartered psychologist, a sport and exercise psychologist registered with the Healthcare Professions Council, and a fitness coach. And I've been helping people overcome their emotional eating habits for over half a decade. And there are two main things that I see in every single person who tries to lose weight when they are trapped in the cycle of emotional eating. The first main thing is that if you're emotionally eating, that is because you are eating in response to emotions, which I know sounds so freaking obvious, but actually what I mean by that is that if you want to move away from emotionally eating, you're going to have to start building alternative responses to the emotions that you're experiencing moment by moment. Because here's the thing, food is incredibly helpful. Food is incredibly soothing. When we're in distress, when we're infants, we are literally breastfed to help soothe us, right? So from a very young age, from our evolutionary history, we share this with all other mammals. Like when we are distressed, we are going to seek out food because it is soothing, right? So we need to, in order to be able to move away from emotional eating, we need to build tools that help us deal with the emotions and basically build alternatives so that eating is not the only option. Because if eating is the only option to emotions, if it's the only resource that you have available, then emotional eating isn't a choice, right? It is not a choice because you don't have another choice other than to cope with whatever's distressing with food. It helps us numb things, it helps us avoid them, it helps us get distracted from the things, it helps us push it down. So food is incredibly useful, but if we want to stop emotionally eating, then we're going to have to build alternative tools to deal with the emotions that are leading to the soothing seeking behaviors, which in this case is manifesting through eating. And because of that, the second and most important thing we're going to have to do to overcome emotional eating is actually learn to cope with and to tolerate and to be in the presence of and withstand distress, which isn't sexy, it's not pleasant, it's incredibly difficult. It requires a lot of skills of learning how to ground yourself, learning how to be in the present moment, learning how to accept and notice these feelings, notice and acknowledge that no feeling is greater than you because it's you who's experiencing it. It's also learning that it is okay to feel things. It's learning that you didn't choose to have different thoughts and feelings, or that you didn't choose to experience distress. Very often we also don't choose the fact that we end up struggling with our relationship with food, the fact that we end up struggling with emotional eating, because more often than not, certainly in my clinical experience, the people who struggle with emotional eating are the ones who were not provided with any sort of role modeling around how else to cope with emotions, right? They may come from households where things were not spoken about. They may come from quite volatile households where they would basically get sent up into their room or run away into their room and be given food or seek out food as a means of self-soothing. They might come from households where food was something that was used to get you to stop complaining, to stop expressing your needs. They might come from families where their bodies were pointed out and their body shape was pointed out and commented on, or they might come from families where other people's bodies were commented on, or people commented on their own bodies in quite a derogatory way. And so inevitably, in the presence of all of that, plus living in a society that is particularly fat phobic, plus living in a society where food availability is incredibly high, where we can literally reach out for so many things that are very, very palatable and that are very easy to overconsume, it is normal and understandable that we might find ourselves emotionally overeating. And because of that, right, in order to actually overcome that, that's why it's so important to learn how to tolerate emotions. That's why it's so important to learn how to tolerate distress. That's why it's so important to recognize that we need alternative ways of coping with those feelings or with those thoughts or with any kind of uncomfortable or unwanted thoughts and sensation that emerges for us moment by moment. And so how do you actually go about doing that? Well, the first thing that I always say to clients is that we need to build awareness. We need to be aware of what's actually happening. And so we need to spend a lot of time noticing what emotions are the ones that trigger these difficult feelings for us. What's happening that means that we end up looking for food to cope? In my experience, again, more often than not, it is any kind of thought, feeling, or sensation or situation that makes us feel like we're not good enough. Anything that triggers a feeling of not being good enough, of not being enough, of a low self-esteem, of a negative self-esteem, is likely to elicit an emotional response, something that in the absence of knowing how else to cope with, we might find ourselves immediately seeking out food. So we need to build awareness around what are the situations that are triggering this food-seeking behavior. What is making us reach out for food? What is is making us want to numb those difficult feelings with food. Once we've built that awareness, we need to start to compassionately understand that we did not choose that. Like I said, it's not for me to make, a million guesses right now, but there is probably a very good reason why you have found yourself struggling more than others with food, or struggling to emotionally eat and not be able to feel like you're regulating your food intake more than other people. So understanding that the circumstances that led to you using food as a coping mechanism and not your fault is really important, because that starts the de-shaming process. Because if you're shaming yourself for emotionally eating, then you're experiencing a high level of shame. And what are you going to do in the presence of shame? You're going to eat more to stop feeling ashamed of yourself, because it's really, really awful to feel like that. So again, starting to de-shame yourself by understanding how and when that food behavior is coming from, essentially, is a super important step once you've been able to notice what's going on there for you. And after that, essentially, what we need to do is build the skills and the capacity to sit with feelings of maybe not being good enough, of maybe, not being good enough in the workplace, or not being enough by society standards on any kind of marker of success that we have absorbed. But also recognizing that even when we're moving towards intentional weight loss, that if we're trying to be very all or nothing, or if we're trying to set very perfectionistic goals, that we're inevitably going to encounter failure. And so being able to sit and tolerate that failure, or that feeling of failure, instead of pressing the fuck it button and eating more, is going to be another important step to follow in that process of moving away from emotional eating. Obviously, it takes a skilled psychologist to be able to help you with something like that, but lucky for you, I've got a free 4-week course that you can follow that's going to help you develop these exact skills to help you stop emotionally eating, irrespective of whether you want to move towards intentional weight loss or just maintain the weight that you're at right now. If you head to the link in the description, you'll be able to download it and get my support for free for 4 weeks. Or if you want to work with me one-to-one and actually get support in overcoming these things directly with your own context there, then you can inquire about working with me through the link in the description too. For more content on how to stop emotional eating, make sure to follow my Instagram account, subscribe to this channel, and I very much look forward to seeing you in the next video.